In the bubbling and ever-busy city of Lagos, Nigeria, John Ajayi's home was anything but peaceful. His father, Mr. Ajayi, ruled the household with a stern hand. His sisters, Bisola and Iniola, had mastered the art of making his life miserable. To make things worse, his uncle and aunt often visited, bringing more chaos and criticisms with them. One evening, after a long day at school, John returned home to find his uncle seated on the couch, chewing noisily on suya. "John, come here," Uncle Bayo called. John approached hesitantly, knowing this wasn't going to end well. "Why do you walk like this?" "Hunching your shoulders like an old man," Uncle Bayo said, smirking. "Are you not a boy? Stand up straight, eh?" John adjusted his posture, muttering under his breath. His aunt, Auntie Fanny, chimed in. "This one? Oh, he can't even talk. Bisola, don't let him embarrass you when you bring your husband's family to this house, oh." Bisola laughed, her voice grating. "Don't worry, Auntie. John has no courage. Even at school, he's just there like a stick." John clenched his fists but said nothing. He looked at his mother, hoping for support, but she was busy serving food and didn't intervene. Later that night, as he lay in bed, he thought about how trapped he felt. His father's expectations, his sister's taunts, and now even his relatives, it was too much. If home was chaotic, school was no better. John's saving grace was Ayo, his hilarious but mischievous best friend. Ayo had a knack for trouble, and no day with him was ever dull. "John, I have a plan," Ayo said, grinning from ear to ear as they sat under the mango tree during lunch. John groaned. "Ayo, your plans always get us in trouble." "This one is different," Ayo insisted. "You see that new copper, Miss Grace? I heard she's scared of frogs. Let's prank her small." John shook his head. "Ayo, please, I don't want trouble." But Tund wasn't listening. Before John could protest further, Ayo had slipped a tiny frog into Miss Grace's bag. The next period was a disaster. Miss Grace screamed so loudly when she opened her bag that the entire school heard. Chaos erupted in the class, with students laughing and cheering. "Who did this?" Miss Grace demanded, her face red with anger. Of course, Ayo was nowhere to be found, and all eyes turned to John, who was awkwardly sitting at his desk. "Ajayi," she shouted. "Meet me in the staff room after class." By the time Ayo reappeared after the coast was clear, John was fuming. "Why do you always leave me to face the music?" "Oh, John, don't be angry. She didn't flog you, did she? Besides, you need to loosen up," Ayo said, laughing. Despite his frustration, John couldn't help but laugh. Ayo had a way of making everything seem less serious. Victor Okoro, the school bully, was infamous. Tall, broad, and always surrounded by his gang of followers, he ruled the corridors like a king. For some reason, he had made John his favorite target. "Ajayi, come here," Victor called out one afternoon as John tried to sneak past the school field unnoticed. John froze. He considered running but knew Victor would catch him. Slowly, he walked over. "You think you're too smart, ABI," Victor said, circling him like a predator. "Let me see your lunch money." I don't have any," John stammered. Victor's eyes narrowed. "Do you think I'm stupid?" Before John could respond, Victor grabbed his bag, rummaging through it. He found nothing but a half-eaten sandwich. "Pathetic," Victor sneered, tossing the sandwich on the ground. "Next time, bring money. Or else." John's humiliation was complete when Victor's gang burst into laughter. Amid the darkness, there was Ada. Beautiful, confident Ada, with her warm smile and kind eyes. She was the only person who made John feel seen. One day, during a biology lab session, John noticed Ada struggling with her microscope. Gathering every ounce of courage, he approached her. "Do you need help?" he asked nervously. Ada looked up, surprised but smiling. "Yes, please. These lenses are so confusing." As John adjusted the microscope for her, Ada watched him closely. "You're really smart, John. Why don't you speak up more in class?" John blushed, mumbling something incoherent. For the first time in a long while, he felt important. From that day, Ada started talking to John more. She'd wave at him in the hallways and even sit with him during lunch sometimes. But their growing friendship didn't go unnoticed. Victor, who had a crush on Ada, was livid. "John, you need to stand up for yourself," Ao said one day after witnessing another round of Victor's bullying. "You can't keep letting him push you around." "And do what? Fight him?" John scoffed. "Yes," Ao said, clenching his fists dramatically. "You need to show him you're not afraid." John laughed bitterly. "I'd lose." "You might lose, but at least he'll know you're not a coward." The opportunity came sooner than expected. Victor cornered John in the hallway, demanding his notebook. "No," John said quietly. "What did you say?" Victor asked, his voice low and dangerous. "I said no." Victor smirked. "Okay, then." The fight was over before it began. Victor threw the first punch, and John hit the ground hard. Students gathered around, cheering and jeering as Victor continued to pummel him. When it was over, John lay bruised and defeated. But as he looked up, he saw Ada watching him from a distance, her expression unreadable. Despite his defeat, John noticed a change. Ada began to spend more time with him, praising his bravery. Victor, however, wasn't about to let that slide. One afternoon, Victor approached Ada in the cafeteria. "Why are you wasting your time with that loser?" "Don't call him that," Ada said, surprising even herself. Victor's jealousy boiled over. "You'll regret this, John Ajayi," he muttered. John's week had been unusually peaceful, save for the occasional mocking glances from Victor and his gang. He was beginning to feel hopeful. Ada had started joining him during lunch breaks, asking about his favorite books and laughing at Ao's ridiculous jokes. Victor, however, wasn't amused. His jealousy grew by the day. Watching Ada, the girl he had a long-standing crush on, enjoy John's company felt like a slap to his face. His anger boiled over during a heated conversation with his gang after school. "That small boy. He thinks he's smart because Ada likes him." Victor spat, pacing behind the abandoned science lab. "We'll see who's smart." "What do you want to do, Victor?" asked Segan, one of his loyal followers. Victor paused, an idea forming in his mind. "We'll set him up. Something big. Something that'll ruin his life for good." The plan began to take shape. There was a stack of exam questions in the staff room. Victor had overheard the teachers discussing it earlier that week. Stealing the papers would cause chaos, but planting them in John's locker, that would ensure all eyes were on the quiet, timid boy. The gang waited until the end of the day, when most students had gone home. Using Segan as a lookout, Victor and another boy, Chidi, sneaked into the staff room. Victor's heart pounded as he opened the drawer where the papers were kept. His hands trembled slightly, but the thrill of the act spurred him on. "Quick, quick," whispered Chidi, glancing nervously at the door. Victor shoved the papers into his backpack. "Let's go." The next morning, John walked into school feeling slightly anxious but hopeful. He had spent the weekend reading one of his favorite science fiction novels, and for once, he felt ready to face the week. Ajayi, barked Mr. Bello, the vice principal, as John entered the school hallway. John froze. Mr. Bello rarely interacted with students unless something serious had happened. "Follow me to the principal's office. Now." Whispers erupted in the hallway as students watched John walk toward the office. Ada, who was standing with a group of friends, looked concerned. "What's going on?" she murmured. Inside the principal's office, John saw a stack of papers on the desk. His heart sank when he recognized them as exam questions. "Do you have anything to say for yourself, John?" the principal asked, his tone stern. John's confusion was evident. I don't understand. "These were found in your locker this morning," the principal said, pointing to the papers. John's mind raced. "That's not possible. I didn't put them there." Mr. Bello scoffed. "Are you saying someone framed you? Who would go to such lengths?" I don't know," John stammered. "But I swear, I didn't do it." The principal leaned back in his chair, studying John closely. "Until we investigate further, you're suspended. Go home." The words hit John like a punch to the stomach. He felt his world collapse around him as he left the office. At home, things were no better. The news of John's suspension spread quickly, and his family was furious. "What kind of shame is this, John?" his father yelled, pacing the living room. "Exam questions. Do you know what this means? They'll call us thieves." "I didn't do it," John said, his voice trembling. "Then how did the papers get in your locker?" his father snapped. John couldn't answer. His mother sat quietly on the couch, looking more disappointed than angry. "John, we've always supported you. But this? I don't even know what to think." Ola seized the opportunity to mock him. "So, our genius is now a thief, eh? Well done, oh." John stormed up to his room, slamming the door behind him. He felt completely alone. John spent the next few days in a daze, avoiding his family and ignoring Ayo's calls. He couldn't bear the humiliation. The idea that everyone, including his parents, thought he was guilty crushed him. But Ayo wasn't about to give up on his friend. "John, open this door before I break it down," Ayo yelled from outside John's house. Reluctantly, John let him in. Ayo immediately launched into his usual animated style. "See, this nonsense can't continue. We both know you didn't steal those papers. So, what are we going to do about it?" "There's nothing to do," John muttered. "No one will believe me." "Who cares if they believe you?" Ayo said, his eyes blazing with determination. "Victor and his gang are behind this. I'm sure of it. And we're going to prove it." Ayo's plan was simple but risky: follow Victor and his gang and catch them admitting to the setup. Over the next 2 days, Ayo and John shadowed the group after school. It wasn't easy. Victor was cautious, and his gang rarely lingered in one place for long. But persistence paid off. One evening, they spotted Victor bragging to Segan behind the school cafeteria. "I told you it would work," Victor said, grinning. "The teachers think Ajayi is a thief. He's finished." John's heart raced as he recorded the conversation on Ayo's phone. Armed with the recording, John and Ayo stormed into the principal's office the next morning. "Sir, I have proof I was framed," John said, holding up the phone. The principal listened to the recording, his expression shifting from skepticism to anger. "Call Victor Okoro to my office immediately," he ordered Mr. Bello. When Victor arrived, his confidence crumbled as the recording was played. He tried to deny it, but the evidence was overwhelming. The principal's verdict was swift. Victor was expelled, and his gang was suspended. Word of John's vindication spread quickly. His classmates apologized, his teachers praised his resilience, and his parents, especially his father, were filled with guilt. "I'm sorry, son," Mr. Ajayi said, placing a hand on John's shoulder. "I should have believed you." John nodded, his confidence slowly rebuilding. At school, Ada approached him, her eyes full of admiration. "I knew you weren't guilty, John. You're stronger than you think." John smiled, but for the first time, he wasn't overwhelmed by her attention. He was finally learning to value himself.